Hi, I'm Ken Kessler, and welcome to the Sounds of Christmas podcast. If you're new to this podcast, I want to start by saying thanks for joining us. If you're not new, welcome back. Either way, I'm glad you're here. Now, to avoid any confusion, I want to start off by saying there won't be any music played here. This is a place for conversation. I'll talk about Christmas music and some related topics, sometimes by myself and sometimes with guests. If you're looking for music, just go to soundsofchristmas.com and click on the tree or the player on the front page or on the Listen Now page. We play the best variety of Christmas music all year long. Well, except in October, when we play the best variety of Halloween music. Very happy to have R&B singer-songwriter Cliff Beach back with us again this year. Cliff is also the host of Deeper Grooves podcast and also Deeper Grooves radio hour on the SoCal Sound 88.5 FM in LA. Cliff, first, thanks for coming back.
Thank you, Ken, for having me again. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you. Is that the right way that you like to be introduced as an R&B singer-songwriter? Because it leaves a lot out, because there, as far as the music goes, there's funk, but there's also that you're a podcast host, you're a TV band leader, and you're an author. It's hard to cram all that in one thing.
I think it depends on the situation and what we're talking about, but we're going to be talking about Christmas music, so definitely R&B encompasses a lot. Obviously, funk, soul, they're all interrelated, stemming from the same American root, but I'm fine. I'm fine with that introduction.
Okay, terrific. Now, last year, you were here talking about the newly released Christmas album, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. In fact, it was just about exactly a year ago. So a year later, what really sticks with you about the experience of putting out your first Christmas album?
Well, I mean, I think for a lot of artists, I think almost every artist you can think of has done a Christmas album at some point in their career. And it was definitely a bucket list item for me, since I have been doing music under my own name since 2010, but I had since 2013 releasing albums under Cliff Beach, a 10-year plan, and making a Christmas album was definitely within that scope. And so last year, I just was finally able to do it after doing the show in LA that had us do a lot of arrangements of Christmas music. And so I just felt the timing was right. And it was just really exciting to be able to put something out there in that repertoire. Obviously, within especially a lot of Christmas lends itself to jazz. So within jazz and then specifically Christmas music, there's covers upon covers upon covers. But you can never really get enough. As you know, since you're programming for Sounds of Christmas, endless amounts of music. It's never like people are like, oh, we're over this artist or a new artist putting out a Christmas album. And then you have obviously some people who have just blown it out of the park, Jose Feliciano with Feliz Navidad, like how that was huge in the 70s, and how people, and Rudolph and those things, and Frosty, and how those are all created as kind of new music. And then obviously, the public domain and canon of O Tannenbaum and those types of songs. I mean, they never really get old. You hear so many, even when I was programming for the radio for Deeper Grooves this year, our Christmas set, there's no shortage of songs that I want to play out in an hour. I always run out of time because there's so much great music. So for me as an artist to be able to put my own spin out there for the Christmas season, Christmas is also my favorite holiday. I'm born in December, as I mentioned many times as well. And so I just think, I don't know, it's one of those kind of, there's so many elements to Christmas beyond the music and the movies, but also seeing a lot of red and green and holiday decorations and tree decorating and, going to Starbucks. And now we're switched from pumpkin season to peppermint season. So I'm very excited about the new year, but also just glad to be able to have that album come out last year and then knowing that it's evergreen content. So Christmas, it never really gets old. So I can keep using it for years to come.
Oh, absolutely. And there's a new Christmas single that's just out, and I want to get to that, but I don't want to omit all the other cool stuff that you've crammed into 2022. You've been so busy. Tons of live performances, West Coast tour, concert at NAMM in Vegas. That's just a handful that I mentioned. of shows. Was this the first time you were able to get back out on the road in front of live audiences after everything got shut down?
Yeah, definitely the first time since 2020 I've gotten back on the road. It was also my first full West Coast tour. So with So Far Sounds, who I've been doing in LA for years, since 2018, was able to do a full West Coast tour from Vancouver, Canada, all the way down to San Diego. So a lot of road warrior miles on my car. I had to get a whole new engine for that, but it was exciting to be able to get out to see different people from different walks of life, and so far it's really great at curating amazing artists and also curating an amazing audience of listeners and supporters and people that will buy merch and add to your social media, and they're just excited to have music. And some of those places were just opening up in April to actually have public gatherings again. So some of the people, it was like their first show in LA. We had been open, I think, since the previous summer. So yeah, it was exciting though to get out there, and I hope to get out again. I'm always looking for any opportunity to get in front of people that have never heard me before, because I think that's the beauty of music, that it connects us and humanizes us. But at the same time, you do as an artist want to grow your followership and fan base from social media and beyond. And as an artist, you kind of always have to have something new to talk about. So I'm always pushing to say, okay, what do we want to do next? What's the next mountain we want to climb, or windmill we want to fight, or whatever the phrase is, to be able to offer something new. But I think also for me, I still have a lot of hunger as an artist, and like to be challenged so that I don't get bored. And so every album, every opportunity allows me to try something new and different. So I had never driven that much before in my life. I had never toured that way before, and it was just a rewarding and amazing experience. Again, another bucket list item to cross off, but many more still to go.
And you had a bunch of new music to share with these audiences. You had a new single, Doing My Own Thing, this past year, a couple new EPs, Four on the Floor and Son of a Beach. How different was it putting those together versus the Christmas music that you worked on last year?
Yeah, so I think around, that's probably about 10 tracks as a whole, similar to the Christmas album, but obviously doing a concept album around one theme is good. And the Christmas album was mostly covers with one original. And then the other songs from this year were all originals, either remixes of originals or originals. So that was a little bit different. And then, I mean, doing my own thing was just like purely like an upbeat funk track. Then Four on the Floor was just like all remixes of my other previous contemporary EP. We're all just a kid from somewhere. And so that was, I'm always, as an artist and in the R&B realm, I tend to lend more vintage. And so for contemporary offerings, I think it's great for people to be introduced to my music in that way. I know the radio station plays a lot of stuff from we're all just a kid from somewhere. So I think audiences can decide through my discogs and catalog kind of how they want to lean. Obviously, with Confident being one of my bigger singles, I lean more on the vintage side. So I kind of go back and forth. But and then for the Christmas album, I just, those were songs that I grew up on, songs that I loved, some that were lesser known that I wanted people to know as an artist, and as a music curator. I'm always trying to kind of point people to the deeper grooves, to the B sides of artists or songs, to say, hey, this is a great song, or this is a great album, or this was a great rendition of this. You should listen to that, because sometimes Christmas music can get very, people have their go-tos and their tried and trues and the really popular ones, and then that's all you hear. But then like, that's the other beauty of Sounds of Christmas, is that you have to go deep because you just have so much to program. So that's interesting. So I've enjoyed the process of all of them, and different opportunities like Marmoset Music collaborated on doing my own thing, and then Chops a producer who had collaborated on We're All Just Kids from Somewhere, did the remixes. Plus Mogul also did the remix for I Got Soul that was on the Four on the Floor. And then I got to do amazing artwork with Image Stricken for that as well. And then Son of a Beach was some great artwork from Noah Gottlieb, who had done my Christmas album artwork as well. And so that got to feature a very old picture of my dad and myself, and so that had like a little nostalgia there. And then I also worked with the Diesel Beat on the Truth for that album, and then Constellation Quartet, who I had done some work with on Wildflower, the strings version. So I always just try to work on something different with the Christmas album. We had a different drummer, Gus from the Diesel Beat played on that, and then I had two different bass players on that album as well, Alex Novice and Alex Romero. So we're always trying to change it up, but I really enjoyed doing the Christmas album. I think it turned out really well. I'm enjoying to be able to listen to it again in the Christmas season, as well as new music that you're putting out on Sounds of Christmas, because there's a lot of new albums that are up on your website as well. And I'm glad to see a lot of the same artists putting out additional music to their catalog. And so that's why I wanted to drop a new single this year, just to continue in the spirit of Christmas.
One of the things that I mentioned when I introduced you was that you're also, I think I said, a TV show band leader, because you're the leader of the house band on Josh Gates Tonight, and you were back doing that for the new season last spring, which is one more thing that's a little bit different from everything else you do.
Oh yeah, I mean, I have such a blast working with Josh Gates. I have nothing but love and amazing things to say, and to him and his production company, Ping Pong Productions, and Discovery Plus, Discovery Channel, who I've known my whole life. He really dominated that whole night, the whole block with the Expedition X and Expedition Unknown, and now he's doing a few other shows, and as well as Josh Gates Tonight. And so it's interesting, I mean, to be on kind of a smaller scale on television, and IMDb says I'm one of the stars of the show. I have third billing, but beyond that, yeah, it was interesting how they found me just through this website Gig Salad, which I had a free profile on. So it was amazing that they were able to find me, and it's interesting how that happens organically. That things are able to find me by just putting stuff out there. I don't put it out with like any expectation. Like I wasn't expecting I'm gonna sign up for this website and I'm gonna end up on TV. That was not a clear path for sure. But it's interesting because they needed an artist that did original music, so they were looking for someone like me, and I happened to fit that bill and get the approvals, and I think being able to come back for a second season was cool because we kind of knew a lot more of what was expected, and it was just a lot more streamlined for us this year, and we were able to deliver, even though we delivered in the first season as well. But it's nice to be able to rinse and repeat and come back, and I feel we had more camaraderie with Josh this season. He felt a lot more comfortable with us. So there's a lot more jokes. Sometimes I'm the butt of those jokes, but in a funny way. And we get to show our personality. He does an amazing job of just saying my name and pitching it. I have fans of his that will become fans of mine because of that. So very fortunate to be able to do that. And yeah, it's one thing definitely being a musician and being a musician on TV. They are different in terms of it's very short content, and it's very buttoned up. But I've always loved bands like The Roots, being on the Tonight Show, and so if we could be kind of a microcosm of that, then that is amazing for us, and it's a rewarding and very fun experience.
And as somebody who was a fan of The Roots before they went on TV, it was really cool to feel like, I knew these guys before. I mean, I didn't know them, but I knew of these guys beforehand. And I'm sure that your fans who have been with you on your journey feel that way about getting to see you now sharing sharing the stage, so to speak, with Josh Gates on his show. That's really cool. And the way that you mentioned getting this kind of opens up to your book, Side Hustle and Flow, that came out this year. What a great example of what you talk about in that book. Without giving anything away, what do you think everybody should know about Side Hustle and Flow?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very excited about the book being out. Thank you to Black Spring Press, Eyewear Publishing in the UK for putting it out worldwide with our distributors here in the US. We're very excited about the audiobook and paperback editions coming out January 17th. So, right after the Christmas season into New Year, New You season, and people setting New Year's resolutions and intentions to their life. For me, going through the book, one, Side Hustle and Flow really helped me to realize that you are able to work full time and also allocate time to your passion projects, things that may or may not make you money, but they make you feel more fulfilled. So I feel like people have to learn that a lot of us have what I call an all or nothing mentality. They feel like, well, if I didn't quit my job and live as a starving artist, then like I'm not an artist essentially, and that's not true. There's many people who eat and can still make art. So I think if you can do it just a little bit of time, it's still better than not doing it all. So like for people who are like, oh my God, I didn't go to the gym 6 days a week. So they just stopped going altogether. It's like then they gain a lot of weight. That's not good. That's counterintuitive. So it's like underwhelm yourself, make a plan to go 3 times a week or 2 times a week, something that you can stick to, something that you can live with, something you can build into your routine. Because once you're there and you do it 2 or 3 times and you start to cultivate a discipline, it's very easy to now add 4 or 5, 6 days to that. In the same way, when you're working on music, even practicing 30 minutes a day can help you to become more proficient and keep up your chops. But if people are like, well, if I'm not practicing 3 hours a day, then I can't do it. Then, it's like you have to realize that life will have other challenges and there's other aspects to you. When you look at like a wheel of life and the segments of your life, you have your financial life, you have your artistic life, you have your family life, you have work life, and you have your spiritual life and other things. So there's so many aspects. We're really like an onion with layers and layers and layers. But again, not having an all or nothing mentality, I think is important. And then people just having that space to dream and to aspire. If you want to start a podcast, do it. There's low barriers to entry. There's ways to get that out to the community. If you want to start a video thing and start posting it on social media, then you can do that. Of course, there's going to be some people that are, have a negative mentality and say, "Oh, don't do that. You're not popular enough. You're not smart enough. You're not good looking enough. Whatever it is." And that could all be true. But I've seen dumb, not great looking people still make successful things. So I don't think that has to be a hindrance. I think at the end of the day, Gary V, who's amazing with social media and books and just motivation, says that he's not the smartest person, but no one will out hustle him. So that's how I try to adopt my life. That I feel like if I'm doing enough things and I'm putting enough intention out there and setting goals and executing them and taking action, then that is important. And then lastly, there is a difference between thinking about doing something and doing something. So a lot of times people are like, I'm thinking about losing weight. I'm thinking about making this new record. It's like that's good, but eventually thoughts have to become action to actually get something done. So we're getting ready actually today to go back into the studio to start working on the new record. And we have a new indie label that's interested in putting it out next year. And so we'll have, 3 very long days of recording. But just like the Christmas album, I started that album in January and we put it out in November. And it took me months, during the year and during the pandemic to get that done. But I knew that I wanted to do that. I wrote down what songs I wanted to do. I worked with a horn arranger on the arrangements and getting all the charts ready. I worked on the rehearsing the band, so there's like little baby steps. It's not like I did it all at once. So a lot of times people will say like, oh, you're like a machine. You're just doing stuff all the time. It's like, well, yes, that is true, but I'm not doing something all the time, 24 hours a day. So you have to pace yourself and create, again, those baby steps. But baby steps can lead to eventually climbing a mountain if you make enough of them. So I think it just adds up doing incremental changes over time.
Well, I think too that somehow a lot of people get caught in this mentality of if I'm going to try something, it has to be a home run. Otherwise, it's a waste of time. And everything can't be a home run, but there's still value in working at it and getting better and getting something out. I mean, one of the things, and this is in one of the shorts you uploaded onto your YouTube channel, one of the things you mentioned about the new book is that you were a contestant for American Idol, and you're still here, you're still doing stuff even though you didn't make it.
For sure. Yeah. And I mean, everyone that you admire and look up to that has done anything of significance has not made it, has failed, and sometimes often publicly than you have. So, I mean, you look at someone like a Michael Jordan, he missed like a lot of shots to be as amazing as he is, but you have to take those shots to make anything. So, it's like, he also is a great example. Michael Jordan was not picked, for his high school basketball team, and he could have just quit, and then we never would have heard of him. He could have just given up altogether. But he practiced and practiced and practiced and grew and grew, and then, the next year he was able to try out and make the team. And so it goes to show you, in business there's a thing called MVP, which people think is most valuable player, but in this scenario, it's minimum viable product. And what that means is that instead of trying to make something that has all the bells and whistles, and you spend a lot of time on R&D and money and etc., you just put out like the minimum thing that you can do so that people can see it, test it, feel it, try it, and then give feedback. In the same way, it doesn't have to be a slam dunk or home run every time, because one, you as the person creating that content or whatever it is going to learn something. And then from there, you don't want to put everything into one thing only to realize like that's not necessarily the thing. Like when you're a kid and you want to dance, sing, make music, play an instrument, do art, you should try all of those things. Because eventually you're going to kind of lean towards kind of one or two things. But if you don't try a lot, then it's hard to pick. And then there's uh, changes within life. You may have done one thing for a section of your life and then move into another chapter and do something else. You may have been doing real estate or taxes for a long time, and now you want to become a psychologist. There's nothing wrong with doing that. I mean, literature and research shows that people will have multiple careers, probably seven or more in their lifetime. It's very rare now that a person just does one thing. And I mean, maybe if you're a doctor or something, and even a doctor could switch specialties if they wanted to at a certain point. So I think it's interesting to see how life unfolds. Again, like with my life in the last 20 years, going from having my band to becoming a solo artist to all the different albums and stuff that we've done and people that we've worked with and collaborated with. And then the trajectory of, going from being a singer and a keyboard player to a producer to an arranger to be part of the Grammy Network to having a record label and a publishing company and a podcast and a radio show and a TV show. I couldn't tell you 20 years ago that was my life. I just put one foot in front of the other, my pants on one leg at a time, and just attempt the impossible to see what could be possible. But if I didn't say yes to certain situations, then I wouldn't have done any of those things. And then you learn all the way. Like my radio show has gotten better. Now we're like 90 shows by doing, and my podcast has gotten better by doing that. Now I'm going into the fifth season next year, and so yeah, I think you have to almost know that it's probably not going to be a slam dunk. It's like you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great, and then you go from there. But starting is the hardest part, obviously, and everyone should have started probably long ago. And then finishing again, the main thing is that a lot of things get started. Like my book, that was like the fourth attempt of trying to write a book. So that was the time where I said, I'm going to get a plan. I'm going to take a class with Scribe Media, and then I'm going to make an outline, and we're going to do this every day, all day until it's done. And I won't stop until it's done and it's finished and it's out and it's published. And so, 2 years later, it was done. But you got to plant that seed. You got to plant the seed and water it and nurture it and watch it grow.
Hey, everybody who's listening says you keep teasing about new Christmas music and you're talking about this other stuff. So let's talk about the new single. It's just out, an a cappella version of Jingle Bells, a lot different than the songs that are on Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. And this isn't your first a cappella Christmas song. You did a version of This Christmas a few years back. What led you to try that form again to do an a cappella song?
Well, I am a singer first for sure, and I've always loved a cappella music. So when we talk about a cappella music, obviously we talk about Bobby McFerrin, like a Night in Tunisia with Manhattan Transfer, who's also done a ton within the space. Take Six, who Manhattan Transfer and Take Six did a live album together, and I've interviewed Cloud Ignite on the podcast. And then you have new people like Jacob Collier, who is amazing at so many things and has a pedal from MIT that allows him to do crazy harmonies and arrangements. And then the Pentatonics, who have done amazing stuff. One of their Grammy winning acapellas was a remake of Jolene with Dolly Parton. And so I've always been a lover of acapella music. I think it's because growing up, my extended family, they have their own type of church, and their church doesn't believe in musical instruments, so they only sing. So I grew up hearing my family harmonize with other family members for years, very tight, intricate harmonies. And so almost out of the 300 plus in my family, I would say like 275 of them are amazing singers. So I'm not probably even the best in my family, but definitely one of the only ones that's like putting music out. But they, yeah, I love the magic and the feeling of people blending the voices together, and I think by doing a cappella music, you get to hear that, and the voice can become a bass or a drum or layers, like instruments can, like a keyboard and synthesizer. And so it's interesting whenever I'm approaching doing a cappella, and I don't do a cappella all the time, but I've done definitely different versions of that. I've done looping videos of a cappella as well that have endorsed by TC Helicon in the past, and so I'm always looking for ways to do stuff. But I thought that Christmas music would lend itself well to acapella. Obviously, pulling Jingle Bells from the public domain. As an artist, you're able to kind of your arrangement becomes kind of the writing and the publishing for that song. And my licensing company, or one of my licensing companies, was asking me to do something, and so I took that challenge to be able to say, hey, how would I do this differently? Because obviously there's so many versions of Jingle Bells. I think one of my favorites is Ella Fitzgerald. But I think Frank Sinatra has a good version too. But I mean, kids are singing it as they're sledding, and it was popular when I was a kid. And just realizing that it's over 100 years old, I had to look it up to see how old it was when looking to see if it was in public domain. And I thought out of all of the ones to cover, somehow that one sounded fresher than some of the others. Like when you think of Adesta Fidelis, that sounds like, or Joy to the World, they sound very traditional, or Silent Night. Or Jingle Bells almost, to me, sounds like a pop song, even though it's from the 1800s or 1900s. No, 1800s for sure.
And your version sounds new. It doesn't sound like somebody singing a song that's 150 years old. It sounds new, and and that's because of the way that you arranged it and layered it, and it sounds contemporary.
Yeah, and so I think that's the beauty of having people cover, is that every artist is a conduit and a filter. And so it filters through me and it sounds like me. I remember years ago, before I was really that deep into music as a kid, reading an article, I want to say in Jet Magazine or Essence or something like that, about Lena Horne. And Lena Horne was saying like, "Oh, I wish I sound some days like someone else." And she was like, "When I open my mouth, I just sound like Lena." And that's how I feel. I feel like I always sound like me. It's a mixture, I'm sure, of my influences, but I can always tell, like, it's gonna sound like me. Like, even if I'm not trying to sound like me approaching or attempting something, it's just like my understanding of music is going to condense and come back out, and then it's gonna sound like me. So for Jingle Bells, It was great because I showed it to a few friends who have known me a long time, and the consensus was they were like, "Your acapella is getting better and better every time you attempt it." So I'm always trying to get better at that because I do just have like a passionate love of it. It's not like I want to be known for it or anything, but I definitely enjoy every time I get to do it because as a singer, it's like endless possibilities, and in a lot of ways it's easier for me since I always started singing first, to do it. But it just worked out that that song made sense, and it wasn't on the previous Christmas album, so I was excited to be able to do it for that reason as well.
All the songs on Merry Christmas, Happy New Year sound like you. They're your interpretations of some of these classic songs and the original as well. But some of these songs that people may know, certainly people know You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch, but there's the James Brown track, Soulful Christmas, and some others that are lesser known, but they all sound like Cliff Beach. And that's great. I get so many songs sent to me every year, and some by artists who are names who people would know, and they're like paint by number exactly the same as what came before, and it doesn't sound, they try so hard to make it sound exactly like Brenda Lee or Bobby Helms or Nat King Cole. And really, if you're trying to sound just like Nat King Cole, just stop now because you're not going to. But but I don't know if that's the expectation that they think people want to hear the same thing, or if it's, I don't want to say it's lazy, but well, in a way it is. It's just kind of putting the same thing out there again with just a new label on it. Listening to the songs on your album, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, it's songs that it's 90% are songs that I already know, but it's not the same. They're not the same thing. They sound new. They're your interpretation on it. And I think that's terrific. I don't know why some artists have a tough time with that, but your songs do sound like you. And you did this album last year, and Jingle Bells is out this year. And because I'm all about the Christmas music, forgive me for asking, but any chance there's more Christmas music on your agenda in the next year or two?
I mean, it's always a possibility. I do love Christmas, and for different needs, especially for licensing, they're always asking me for different things because Christmas movies are pretty much made year round. We know that there's going to be places like Hallmark Channel, etc., that are going to have the meet cute Christmas, and they do Christmas in July as well. So I definitely think there's stuff that I haven't done. Definitely songs that I program on the radio. I can tell you, for instance, "Backdoor Santa" is a song that I love. I'd love to do some covers of some of those R&B classics that are like semi-known, but they're not like the first song you think of. They're not Mariah Carey, "All I Want for Christmas Is You."
Right.
"Backdoor Santa," Rufus Thomas, "I'll Be Your Santa." I mean, there's some great funk tracks that I would definitely love to do my own spin on, and who knows, there may be also just some other, and what I haven't done, obviously coming from gospel, and my roots is a traditional gospel Christmas song, so I think that could definitely be something in the future. I don't know if it's going to be Silent Night or Joy to the World or whatever it is, but I think there's so many, and I looked at a bunch, and then I remember like at the end of the recording, I thought to myself, "Wow, I didn't do any of those traditional songs." I think because when I was planning it, I was like, "Let's do contemporary ones or artists and that people know." But I know like Ella Fitzgerald has a contemporary Christmas, and then she also has like a traditional Christmas album, and I always like the contemporary one better. So I think I think you just do the music that you think is best at the time. But I could definitely see myself doing something out of the traditional canon in the future, just to I don't know. I feel like it was, if I had more tracks on that album, I would have added at least one. So I definitely think one of those is gonna be in the future.
I was so excited to see when I first started to read about your Christmas album coming out last year that you were covering the James Brown song because he, somebody could do a whole James Brown Christmas songbook because he did so much, and it just it nobody covers that stuff anymore, and there's so many, and it was so great to see Soulful Christmas on your album last year, and there is a lot of that. The Staple Singers had some great Christmas tracks, on and on and on. But it's terrific that there are artists like you who will who find those things and remind everybody that these great songs exist, and it's saving the music, and I think that's terrific. You had mentioned that you're getting ready to go in the studio and work on a new album. 2023 is just around the corner. We've got the audiobook and paperback of Side Hustle and Flow coming in January. What else do you have coming next year that you can talk about or you want to tease?
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll definitely be going to record the soul album, which is called Beach Please. I have to poll people and see if the funny names of albums is over or not. But Beach Please, that's going to be an 11 song album, and super excited to again. That'll be it has a lot of vintage soul elements, but it has some pop elements and R&B elements and funk, and blues. So we're mixing it up a bit, and then and some ballads on there, which we don't normally do. So that's nice to get a little bit more, I guess, romantic as I get older. But and then I also have a fully arranged jazz album of 10 songs that we're also hopefully going to record next year. So we're still putting our
Wow.
new rhythm section together for that. But it'll be my first heavily arranged album and my first departure into jazz. Although I've always had jazz elements in my music as well, and you can definitely hear a lot of that on the Christmas album. But jazz, from a PR standpoint, just has like a lot of its own outlets and it's art music, and there's kind of ways to pitch that in a different way. And so I was told, hey, you should do a jazz album. So I was like, yeah, let's do that because I love jazz. It started out as an Ella Fitzgerald tribute album called Fella Fitzgerald. I think we're moving away from that now to really just be showcasing the Great American Songbook. But obviously, Ella has been a huge love of mine, and I watched recently a documentary. I think just one of those things. If you haven't seen it, it's amazing. But yeah, I just have such a high level of respect. Obviously, being a student at Berklee College of Music, which is heavily based in jazz, I'm still learning every day, and I'm still challenging and pushing myself to be a better singer and to be a better arranger, and I added a new Berklee arranger to help me arrange it. My horn arranger is also on standby for possible additional arrangements, and then obviously I'm arranging vocals and other things. But it is going to be, I think, a beast of a record, kind of like my gospel record where I ended up with 30 different personnel. I think this jazz record is going to be an opus in terms of that. And again, it's kind of like the Christmas album where it's mostly covers, obviously, of Great American Songbook, but I do have at least one original. So I try to do that just so that I get to add something into that space that's a Cliff Beach too, signature tune. So and exciting because it was a ballad that we've now moved into like an up tempo thing. So, but yeah, it'll have some Latin flair. It'll have some traditional jazz. It'll have kind of R&B elements of jazz as it evolves, like kind of an '80s Al Jarreau kind of thing. So we're just trying to stretch and grow. And I tell people all the time that all growth happens outside of your comfort zone. So if you're not feeling the pain points and the growing pains and the stretches, then you're not doing enough. You're not pushing yourself hard enough.
I'm going to put links in the show notes for many of the things we've talked about, your book and podcast and radio show, and certainly for Jingle Bells and the Christmas album. But what's the best way for people to keep up with you?
Social media is always the best way, so everyone can at Cliff Beach Music is my handle on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're on YouTube as well under Cliff Beach Music, so you can definitely find me there. If you DM me, I'll respond. People can also email me. A lot of people email me at the radio station, so my email there is cliff@885fm.org. If people want to recommend music to me or just say hello, you can email me there. But yeah, and then people can always find me on my radio show, Saturday nights, 10 p.m. on the SoCalSound.org or at the SoCal Sound. I mean, I'm findable and reachable, so hopefully people do reach out. And I'm always thankful for every fan and anyone that takes the time to write me because it's nice to be able to get that feedback from the audience that's listening.
I will say this about the radio show. You don't have to be in LA to listen. You go to that website, and I'll put the link again in the show notes. You can stream it from wherever you are, and you don't have to listen live even. There's a great archive, so you can hear the latest show from 10 weeks ago, everything in between, all of that kind of stuff. So check that out too. Cliff, thanks so much for spending so much time with us today.
Thank you, Ken. I'm looking forward to listening to Sounds of Christmas and hearing some of the new music and the old music and everything in between. And thank you just for your service of having pretty much Christmas music round the clock. I know that's a lot of work, but I know there's a lot of people who are lovers of that music. And now that Thanksgiving is over, it's Christmas season.
You bet it is. Thank you. And thank you so much for listening and continuing to support the Sounds of Christmas station and podcast. We're well into the new season, so anytime you're ready for some musical Christmas spirit, just head on over to soundsofchristmas.com and click on the tree or the player on the front page or on the Listen Now page. You can also find our app in the Google Play Store and take the music with you wherever you go. As far as this podcast goes, we're now on over 30 podcasting sites. So if you didn't find us on your favorite today, just search for the Sounds of Christmas next time you go there, and I'm pretty sure you'll find our tree. Then you can subscribe and you'll never miss another episode. If you have comments or suggestions on this episode, previous episodes, or the Sounds of Christmas station, feel free to reach out to me on social media or through the website. Thanks again. And may you always believe in Santa Claus.